Oh, it didn't do the countdown today. Hello. Welcome. Happy Monday. So, I wanted to talk today about creating sustainable self-care practices. Say that 5 times fast. I've talked a lot about self-care. It's something that I'm very passionate about for many reasons. My own journey with self-care has been interesting, to say the least, and I'm sure that lots of you can relate to that. I spoke a few weeks ago about when and how to know if your self-care practices are actually serving as self-punishment. So if we're turning to them as a means of, like, look how good I am, I did this thing today, or, that sense of accomplishment because you crossed a thing off of a list because it was something you were supposed to do, right? Self-care is kind of trendy right now. There's lots of different practices and things, and just it's like do all the things for all the benefits, and it's really not that complicated. It's not intended to be. Everything outside of that in our lives is kind of complicated, and so simply connecting with ourselves shouldn't be one of them. And to me, self-care is simply the art of deeply listening to your needs in a very fluid and compassionate way, because they're always going to be fluctuating. They're always going to change day by day. They're going to change with the seasons. They're going to change with the phase of your life, whatever is happening in your life. If your life is going through a very stressful period, or if everything is kind of beautiful and hunky-dory, like it's a very fluid, ever-changing process. So, that being said, how do we even begin to create sustainable practices in the first place? A lot of my clients struggle with consistently showing up for themselves, and I've struggled with that as well. We are kind of on again or off again. We can tend to have this dichotomous thinking where it has to be all or nothing. Like, I'm either going to meditate for an hour today, or I'm just not going to do anything at all, and then I suck. And that's where it can kind of slip into that self-punishment thing. So we all know the importance of showing up for ourselves daily. Like daily. It needs to be daily because you are alive daily. And in showing up for yourself daily, you're creating self-trust and self-love. You're also practicing a loving self-discipline. And there can be a lot of energy around that word discipline. And that's where we can kind of fall back into is your self-care self-punishment. When I say loving discipline, I mean kind of, I just had this song pop into my head, knowing when to hold them and knowing when to fold them, knowing when to walk away and when to run. So a loving self-discipline is, for me, I can be a very type A, fiery go-getter. And it's very easy for me to fall back into my old ways of pushing through and forcing, despite my body or my energy levels being like, please stop. I can very easily kind of be like, F you, I'm doing this. And so my discipline, my medicine, my medicinal discipline is to listen to that voice and to actually slow down, because everything in me wants to go and push past my needs, push past my boundaries. And sometimes the opposite's needed. So a loving discipline, we all know what it is that we need. If you're somebody that can succumb towards, or to rather, more like lethargy and kind of a lackadaisical attitude and not really pushing, or not pushing, let's get pushing out of our vocabulary. Kind of a more lively, energetic, springy way. I like that. Springy is better than pushing. Maybe your medicinal discipline is to be a little more kind of assertive with yourself. So we all know what we need, truly need. So in showing up daily, we listen to those needs, we honor them in a fluid way, we practice loving discipline, which is radical self-responsibility, which if you followed me for any measure of time, I'm all about. It's really up to us. It starts from within with radical self-responsibility. So showing up daily, we peel away the layers of crap that are preventing us from being our authentic selves, which truly Now more than ever, the world needs you in your fullness, in your light, and in your authenticity. And your loved ones, your community, all the people that you interact with on a daily basis deserve that as well. And so that sustainability, wishy-washy inconsistency I spoke about, a lot of us struggle with. We let life get in the way, which I love that excuse. I find it very comical. Because the thing is, our practices shouldn't be separate from life. You are alive every day. So life is always happening. Your body is always present in your life. Your entire being is always present in your life. And so they're not two separate things. It's not like I have my practices and then I have life. They're meant to kind of coexist in a very integrative fashion. And so when we view our practices that way, nothing gets in the way. And I would like to share with you some keys in creating this sustainable, yummy, fluid practice. Because when it's that way, it's all just kind of this steady stream of life. And so much of our struggles can come from these ridiculously high expectations that we have of life or of ourselves, where we have a story and we're not actually seeing reality with some contentment and gratitude, because everything is always just flowing. And when we're up here in this resistance mode and not receiving, that's where a lot of the suffering comes from. So with anything, right? So kind of step one with anything, and especially with creating these sustainable practices, is identify your why. So why is it important to you to have consistency and sustainability? Why is it important to you to be connected to yourself in this fluid manner and in this authentic manner? Why is it important to you to really show up for yourself with this radical self-responsibility and to practice this loving discipline, to tune in daily and kind of identify and then honor? It's one thing to identify, and then you gotta honor whatever need arises. So why is that important to you? And then after that, identify how it is that you want to feel. How do you want to feel? How do you feel when you're being inconsistent and when the layers of life have piled on you? How does that feel? And then how does it feel when you're in this more fluid, receptive, non-rigid way and being a little more sustainable? How does that feel? Where do these feelings live in your body? Because neither one is right and neither one is wrong. They're both just kind of here. And if you know that you like the feeling of the consistency and you value that, and that's part of your why, that aligns with your why, and that helps you to be who you most want to be in the world, that's kind of your like key, and you get to follow that. That's like your North Star, if you will. And so really getting friendly with this feeling. For me, when I'm most aligned and when I am being consistent and when I'm really following that fluid nourishment within, I feel it most in my chest and upper gut. So this like little column right here, it feels light and expansive, as opposed to the kind of more chaotic, or when I can dip back into my old ways of pushing and forcing and bypassing my needs. That lives more in my jaw and in my neck. It's like a clenched feeling. So two different areas of my body, two very different sensations. So notice where those live for you. All right. And then which activities and people and non-people, maybe some animal friends in your life, which things help to generate that feeling that you most want, that real true feeling of nourishment? Because that's your authenticity. That other stuff, so for me, my inconsistency that I said lives in my jaw and my neck and throat, that's not me. That's me with layers of like armor and old coping mechanisms and bullshit piled on top of me. So this is me. So which things and people and activities make you feel the most you? And for me, part of my daily sustainable practices, if I get an hour, if I get 5 minutes, it's a yoga practice. It's hanging out with my lover. It's petting my dog. It's being in nature. So those are the things that elicit this me, and the layers just melt away. And so we're all about sustainability, right? And we don't live in an ashram on top of a mountain, which is fine. We don't need to. So which barriers, the possible barriers, might present themselves to you? So what have been downfalls in the past when you have attempted to create sustainability in your practices and in your life? Most often, it is simply us. It's just our own stories, and it's us allowing life to get in the way, like I said, and it's allowing something outside of us to make us feel like we can give our power away or lose our grace for a moment and step away from what we need. So get really honest. This is where that radical self-responsibility comes. Get really honest with these possible barriers. Okay? And then maybe it is more, practical things, like kids need to be picked up from school or dinner needs to be made. So just identifying these things and then creating times and plans around them. It really is a matter of what's important to you and making the most time for that. If you have time to scroll through Facebook and watch this entire video of mine, you have time to shift some things around and get that meditation practice in, or walk in nature, or whatever things for you elicit that authentic you. All right. And always have a plan of alternatives. So what alternative things can help to combat these possible deviations? If you're still kind of viewing self-care as self-punishment and you're having that all or nothing thing, I'm talking directly to you. This is a time to be okay with some days it's not going to be a 60-minute yoga practice. Or some days, you might have to step away early from, I don't even know, a massage. Like it has to be shorter or something like that. And just being okay with that and knowing that showing up a little is better than not showing up at all. And so that's where I said this compassion and love and devotion, that's where you want to be working from. Treating yourself like you're beloved and treating yourself like just the most sacred and holy thing that you're, in a sense, practicing devotion towards. It's, if you're a yogi at all, it's this notion of bhakti yogi. So this notion of just utter love and compassion and devotion for yourself, which is a very different place than punishment, control, and rigidity. And if you're struggling with that, revisit your why. And lastly, so the last key is to always seek support from seen and unseen realms. So from seen realms, this could be recruiting friends and family or a trusted mentor or coach. And studies have actually shown that people who do recruit people, because we're communal beings, are way more successful than those who try to go it alone. So that might be something else to consider if you're struggling with your sustainability is, are you trying to do things all on your own? Are you afraid to speak up and ask your partner for some support and be like, hey babe, I need 20 minutes in the evenings. Could you go with the kids outside? Or, could you kindly just go away for 20 minutes while I have this time? Are you afraid to speak up for yourself? Are you afraid to kind of share what you're doing? Is it maybe an alternative way of living than those around you? That was something I kind of struggled with when I was younger, is I'm the only one in my family who's like me. No one else gives a shit about organic anything or, alternative this or alternative that. And I'm the weird oddball. And what's actually beautiful is that's a blessing to be that, because so many people, our friends and family included, can be stuck in these old ways of thinking that are just not even theirs. They were given. right? Like, why do you use the brand of detergent that you use? Chances are it's because your family used it and you just kept going. And so we're not thinking clearly, we're not thinking for ourselves. So by you kind of holding that mirror up and presenting this new way, you might be surprised what happens, because people most often are craving something real. And when you are that stand and you are practicing something real, you're inspiring and kind of giving other people that sense of permission to do the same. So what support do you need? Get it. Do not be afraid. And then from unseen realms, that could be my favorite flower essences, or other energetic support, because they can really help to shift these old vibrations and old ways for even more effect. So if you have the old stories about not being able to speak up for yourself, or a harsh inner critic who's preventing consistency because you're all or nothing, whatever that particular story is, carries a certain frequency within you that's making it really difficult for you to manifest the change that you're looking for in your gross three-dimensional experience. This subtle imprint is preventing that. So energetic modalities like flower essences especially can really support that. Golden seal is fantastic as kind of a umbrella approach when it comes to making new resolutions or new habits. Obviously, the more specific and granular that you can get with whatever it is that you're struggling with specifically, there's a flower for that. There's an app for that. There's a flower for everything. So I'm curious, how do you show up for yourself daily? What struggles have you had in doing so? And what are your favorite ways to practice self-love and self-care in an intentional and fluid way? So please share with me. Let's learn from each other. Let's share practices and inspire and be that support group, right? That supportive accountability place, if you will. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Be well, and I'll see you next time.